Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. This is the second episode of HelloPause. The last one was about how blindsided we can get with the journey that is perimenopause and menopause. And so we call that episode Blindsided. Today we are going to talk about the healthcare landscape. Dr. Lisa Savage has been working as an OBGYN for a career of 30 years. Jill Angelo is the founder and creator of Genève, which is now offering these amazing opportunities to get online appointments with Medicare specialists. Professor Detra Payne teaches in the Gender Studies and Theater Arts departments at UT Arlington. And she, like me, is navigating her menopause journey. We wanted to tackle the healthcare landscape because it feels like a maze, and the hallways of closed doors, the misdirects, the dead ends, the signposts that point every direction at the same time, and the pay-to-play gateways at every turn are part of what makes the journey to the other side of menopause feel so freaking hard.
It kind of goes to the core of why I started Genève. When we began Genève, we really thought about, we want this platform for education because menopause is something we don't really talk about. And so we thought, why not start the conversation? We also sold health and wellness products as well. But the more and more we heard from women was that they just didn't know who to go to, or their primary care physician was kind of brushing them off or telling them they had to suck it up. Yeah. And so we really saw a true opportunity to improve access to quality care. And so we started, the true telemedicine component of our platform.
You wound up with more than one doctor before you found the right one, didn't you?
Mm-hmm. I wanted a specific doctor. Being an African-American female, I wanted an African-American doctor. I feel like the conversation would be a lot easier between us. The understanding of who I am as a woman in life would be a lot easier. They could relate to all the things that I could anticipate were going to happen. And so I had two female doctors who were African American, and then I decided this is not working. The one doctor, when I said, "Hey, I'm having all these hot flashes and it's too much for me. What can I be placed on hormones or something?" Her question to me was, "Do you still have your uterus?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "No, you need to lose weight." Wow. And I was like, "Sorry, but I can't lose weight.
Right,
it's not working."
Right. Well, and I think that happens so often. Like your first visit to the doctor, you have a random set of symptoms. You're not really sure what's going on. You're not sleeping as well. You put on some weight. You're blah blah blah, and you get told, you need to eat less and exercise more. You need to take some calcium. You need to sleep better.
That's it.
And like this whole list of things.
All those things.
Yeah, and you're like,
I know.
I'm sorry, if I could do all that, I wouldn't need to be here.
Right. I have a little different perspective, and that is that being a gynecologist and seeing women for a variety of gynecologic things, but menopause included, I didn't see the women who were having trouble finding care. I saw the ones who came in for care. And so this other population of women who were not able to access that or figure out who to see was something I wasn't so aware of. I've been really surprised by that.
Well, so I read a 2019 study of 177 resident doctors. 20% of them had received zero training in menopause. That's the exact percentage of women who have gone to see their doctors with common menopause symptoms that were not hot flashes, like the classic one, right? But other common ones, and their doctors did not bring up the possibility that they were going through menopause. So how did you get to be knowledgeable about this? Because it seems like there is a lot of lack of knowledge and training out there.
Well, I felt the latter. I was usually surrounded by gynecologists or OBGYNs, but colleagues in other specialties, family medicine, internal medicine, not as much. At the same time, I wouldn't expect them to be, except for very superficially familiar.
enough to say, hey, you should probably go
Exactly.
see.
Enough to redirect a patient to an OBGYN. But I think in general, recognizing who are women's specialists, who are menopause specialists, who's going to have the time and the expertise to help with that is really going to be helpful.
You know, and I think one thing to add on to, you know, the OBGYN specialty is there's not enough of you. You know, there's a real shortage in the United States. I think the same article in O Magazine pointed that out as well. But that's one thing that we have found in why we started the telemedicine component and service for Genève was to improve that access. I think the average age of OBGYNs in the U.S. is 55. So we're retiring them faster than we're graduating new ones. So there's also just this supply and demand challenge that exists as well. Some of the statistics I've read from the American Congress of Obstetrics and Gynecologists have stated it is a population shift. We have an older population in the United States.
Think about the baby boomers.
Yeah.
Huge demographic coming into menopause years.
Right.
So it is a shift in demographics, I think, more than anything.
You know, I've been in the entertainment industry for a very long time. I only started teaching in 2011, and I only started full-time in 2015. So it's not that long of actually having health insurance for a long, long time. And I've had health insurance on and off, but for the most part, I've been one of those kids that was like, no health insurance, you better just stay healthy. And when you don't have it, you're like, I'm not going to the doctor on a regular basis. So I do a lot of online or reading, and also being a Black female, you go to your aunties and and you say what, and they say, Miss So-and-so said, do this, you know, kind of thing. There's a lot of home remedy. Oh, I totally.
Women helping women, the girlfriend network, as I call it, the auntie network.
But the problem in that is that a lot of the women are not necessarily discussing all the aspects of menopause or perimenopause. Like most people were not discussing perimenopausal stuff. They would talk about They would just say, "Oh yeah, you're gonna have hot flashes." Like that's the main thing that I ever heard. You have hot flashes? Oh yeah, you're gonna have hot flashes, girl. It's gonna be bad. But not what is the remedy besides get the fan that you take to church, and you know what about hair loss? I don't have hair on my body because it went away. I don't know what happened. That was years ago, but that's part of the beginning. My hair thinning. Yes, this is not mine, but it's mine. And they're not talking about vaginal dryness. They're not talking about because everyone thinks that they're still having sex on a regular basis in a normal way and all these other things. And I'm thinking, really? Are you?
That's one thing that women are hesitant to bring up, even in my office. And I might inquire about it based on their physical examination and say, hey, I was wondering, do you have symptoms related to this or any problems? And then they'll go, oh, yes. But I'm always surprised that they didn't bring it up.
Right. No, they won't talk about
even
it.
to me, a gynecologist.
No.
There's such shame, though, I think.
Yes.
Unfortunately, Or I think naturally what we hear a lot of is this normal? You started off with saying, am I going crazy?
Yes.
But it is hair thinning. It is anxiety. I'm snapping at my family. It's all these other kind of lifestyle oriented things that you think are just you changing versus actually.
And women also think that they may think it's normal, but they think they just have to accept it, and that's the way it is. That's just the way it is. That there's not a remedy or a way to feel better.
And then when you do find something I'm not married. I don't know if everybody else is. I'm not. So I don't. So that means partners and all that kind of stuff. But I don't have partners. We're not going to get into that. That's another subject. But still, I'm like, well, if I do, then you have the shame of that, right? But it's all like, what is gonna, what's gonna happen? Is he gonna be like, ugh? But then I think, well, it's the same thing for him at this age, when the poor guy.
It is equal opportunity,
right? Oh, what's happening? Kind of thing.
Yeah. But commercials for Viagra are
all over the place.
Exactly.
Like we can fix you.
Is, a dime a dozen.
Yes.
Whereas talk about financial disparities. If you look at the cost of HRT, hormone replacement therapy, and you compare it to getting a whole barrel full of Viagra, there's a real discrepancy.
But then hormone therapy, when I did find another doctor, she actually said, okay, I'm going to put you want to get on. And I said, well, they said I can't because I have that cancer. She was like, we'll put you on a very low dosage. It's not this. So she put me on a low dosage and it would change my life. Initially, the cost of it
Right.
was like $100 and some odd, and I was like, I can't afford that, so I stopped.
For 1 month?
Yes,
Yeah.
I was like, I can't, and so I didn't use it. And then I saw her again, or maybe a year, and I said, and then she goes, well, I'll get a cheaper version. We can get something better, more economical. Let me find this out. And now it's like so much cheaper. I went, well, how come you can get
Yeah. But I think that also shows that the conversation with your doctor isn't just about how you're feeling, whatever. It can also
Right.
be about
Yes.
price
Money.
and
Yes,
budget
you have
and
to.
money,
Yep.
You
because
have
there's
to.
so many different options now.
I don't know that we really discuss these things enough. I don't know what it's like in my Asian sisters' families and my Latina sisters' families. I want to know what's the conversation you all having.
Yeah, which we do too, which is one of the reasons that HelloPause exists. We would really like to have that conversation and find out how it's different.
Is it different?
Right.
Are you, and how do you all speak to your family and friends and girlfriends? Are you being very open and honest? I'm very open and honest. Like, this is a problem. Like, what do I need to do? Because I think that's how we, can help each other.
Yeah.
Well, and I think too, it's not just that like our mothers are keeping secrets from us, and maybe they're not comfortable talking about sex, but there's a lot of things happening in our bodies that they have no idea. They were never given language, and we kind of talked about this in the first episode, but in as late as the 1930s, women were being locked up in insane asylums for being depressed, and sterilized for good measure so they wouldn't pass on their bad mental health to the next generation. So talking about mental the dysphoria, the depression, the kind of emotional sides of menopause has not been something that you were allowed to do, even if you understood it, which you probably didn't, because there were dire consequences to doing that. And in the 1950s, it seems that they handed out hysterectomies like cough drops, and so you didn't really go through the experience organically, spontaneously. I didn't have a roadmap to follow, and I think that a lot of it is a lack of language.
Yeah.
I think it's the era of the woman right now, on so many levels, with equal pay and Me Too and so on and so forth. But even in the women that we see come to Genève, they are looking for conversation. They're looking for it to be normalized. They're looking, they're seeking a safe place to have the conversations. We have a lot of data around women who come to Genève and the menopause assessment that they complete to learn more about what's happening in their bodies. And I am amazed at how young women are coming to our platform more and more. Like, this is
great.
late 30s, early 40s.
Recognizing it sooner.
Yeah, or they're curious. We're also, I think, as a society, more apt to take control of our health and wellness. So if you're not feeling normal, you're going to seek it out.
Well, I think insurance coverage turns out to be a big blockage for people seeking help through our healthcare system on a regular basis. And so you start doing things like Googling your symptoms and joining forums and
How can I get it for less?
and the fire hose of information that shoots out at you when you're on a forum or Googling the information is daunting.
Well, and about 70% or more of medical information found online is either incomplete or incorrect. That's a really high percentage. And so it's really nice to have forums like Genève where you can have a reliable source.
Yes.
And I always told patients about sources online that I thought were reliable, because if you just depend on Dr. Google, you are going to get that fire hose. And you're not going to be able to sort out what's valid, what's not,
Right.
what's incomplete, what's true. It's difficult. So having reliable sources is really important.
I think that forums even exist. It shows just how in need women are.
Yeah.
They're desperate.
Yeah.
They're desperate for community, for solutions. They're looking.
They're problematic, but they are standing in the gap right now between the knowledge that women need and their ability to get it. Like, I thought, well, I maybe have a nutritional deficiency. I need to find out what vitamins and nutrients I'm lacking. I need to find out what's happening with my hormones. So I'm making a huge list of tests, things that I want done, and I take it to my new doctor, and she's like, okay, I guess we can do all this. But the insurance paid for very little of that experience, but I was determined at that point. And then I wound up at a thyroid specialist, and there was a wait list, and there was a wait list for the nutritionist, because I thought, well, I probably just need to be eating some different foods. And the thyroid doctor was a hammer who saw every problem as a nail. So he was like, it's definitely thyroid. Ignore all of these hormone results. We're going to put you on a thyroid medicine, and you have to sleep better. I'm like, oh, thanks for that tip. And so I'm on thyroid medicine. That didn't work. And so then by that time, I had...
When does a gynecologist enter your life?
Well, so I was one of the...
Did you call me?
I was one of the many women who was using their primary care physician to do my well woman exams, and they were always fine.
They're fine until they're not. And again,
right? No, but my tests were fine, so I didn't wind up there.
Family medicine and internal medicine, and some of them are really great at doing those annuals, doing your pap, ordering your mammogram. That's fine. But once you start to have a problem,
right?
Not an observation, but a problem. Then I think that then you should be directed to a women's healthcare specialist who can put all those things together for you.
Yeah, and I eventually did get there, but the one I got directed to had a waiting list and didn't take my insurance, and he did save my life, and I'm happy there, but the amount of time and money that I spent on this process.
So if we could educate women not to go down all these detours, right? To be a little bit more directed and getting help, then I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, and I also think by starting with the women's health specialist and OBGYN, it doesn't mean that you can't also supplement that traditional care with functional care, with teas, with acupuncture, because a lot of those things can relieve symptoms, but to have that North Star that can help you direct and understand why and how all these things are connected. I think you're like a navigator as an OBGYN, and I think you're not really thought of that way. I think typically women think of their OBGYN as an OB to have a baby, or that's what we hear from a lot of the women who come to Genève, and then kind of that's it. And so I just think that's a really important point around where women start in their journey versus having all this trial and error, inexperience, time, and money before you actually get to someone who could explain things to you.
I'll make one little point along those lines of OB and GYN, and I did both for a lot of years. And most of us do OB and GYN, at least for part of our careers, if not all of it. And having done OB, I know that when you're doing OB, the practice of that takes up a lot of time and energy, and a lot of that is unpredictable, and babies are coming in. And so your energy and your focus may be on that OB portion of your practice, with a little bit less of that to go around to your GYN patients and your menopause patients. And seeing someone who only does GYN and doesn't have the OB part in their practice might be an option for some women. Again, I do not want to disrespect my very good dear friends and colleagues who do both. But if you see an OBGYN and you're finding perhaps not getting quite the attention or the time dedicated to what you need, it might be an idea to seek someone who just does GYN.
I was wondering that. I'm sorry. I was wondering that because I realized that a lot of doctors in general, not to, but this is my experience, they don't like to spend a lot of time with you anyway, regardless of what their actual practice is. It's not that
they don't like to. They would love to, in general. We would love to. But in order to pay the rent and pay the staff and actually pay ourselves, you have to see a certain number per day, and that means a certain amount of time per patient. Most physicians would love to have a half-an-hour appointment with you. But it's just not realistic.
Here's my only problem with that. I think that there are some who can have 15 people in a day and they should be fine. But if you're trying to do 35 people in a day, then you're being excessive and you're actually doing disservice to the people who are coming in. Because why would I have to sit for an hour and a half, which literally just happened to me, and then I saw you for 10 minutes and you didn't build me the X amount of dollars, which is partly the reason why people I'm sure choose not to go to the doctor.
And then you have to spend a half a day to go and sit and wait 10 minutes.
More than the time that I actually visit with you. And then what happens is, this, and I found this to be, when the doctor came in, I'm trying to tell you all the things that I can try to remember. Memory loss is part of the issue. So then I write it down, and then I'm trying to do this, and the doctor is looking like, okay, next. I'm hearing you, but I gotta, can you wrap it up? I have 5 minutes with you. And then you go, okay. And then of course, if you ask a question, they have to go on a tangent to talk about the question, but then you don't come back to answer all the other 4 or 5 questions you have. So what am I supposed to do? That's where you go, again, back to, I didn't have insurance at one point. So now why do I need to pay you?
Right.
If I have to go do the work anyway, let my aunt give me the book on natural remedies. I'll read through the natural and try to figure it out. And then only because it became so miserable with sweating that I said, okay, because I did not want to take hormones. I was told they're not good for you.
There's been a lot of misinformation about the dangers of hormone replacement therapy. And speaking of which, my primary care colleagues all heard about the Women's Health Initiative back in the early 2000s. And
that's what created the myths and the fear around it.
But they didn't have time or inclination necessarily to keep up with the latest. It's hard enough to keep up with the latest in your own specialty. Yeah. And so that all the headlines and all the journal articles, HRT is bad, estrogen's going to kill you. They all took that to heart, and then they took women off of it abruptly. They refused to prescribe it in the future, and so there's a holdover to that. A lot of my primary care colleagues won't go near it.
Mine put me on antidepressants instead, and that's what happens to a ton of women. I loved all the things that Detra said. Brought up 2 things for me. One of them is the fact that you are having the perfect example of the extra layer of crap on the crap sandwich that African American women so often have. Their researchers have found that they are routinely treated more brusquely. They are routinely dismissed by their doctors. They are routinely not given the same options when things go wrong. And they are statistically more likely to suffer from things like stroke, Alzheimer's, heart, cardiovascular disease, all these things that are connected to perimenopause. So to me, it is so important to talk about that.
As people of color, because, that's everybody who is non-Caucasian, basically. So we are told you have to toughen it out in a way, that what you're going through is not any different than what you can handle it. And it's like, I'm still human. I'm a human being. Let's start there. So I think it is important that women of color know and feel comfortable to talk about their situations, especially if you're going with dealing with a physician who does not look like you, that your physician says, I'm open to whatever you have to say. Let me talk to you. Because as I said, going to someone who looked like me, it didn't work. She was just like, lose weight. You need to lose weight.
Well, she was like other physicians.
Right. Yeah, right, exactly. So I was like, well, but sister girl, like, you can't tell all of us to lose weight. It's not, how is that, hormone replacement, or your question of, do you still have your uterus? Did you? Yes. Like, did you? I'm trying to, okay. Yes.
So what she meant by that was, am I going to have to give you, if I give you anything, the 2 hormones, estrogen and progestin? Because if you have a uterus, the answer is yes.
Okay.
And it's a little bit more risky proposition than someone who does not have a uterus, for whom just the estrogen can be prescribed, and it's less of a risk profile and less trouble with side effects like irregular bleeding and so forth. So it's real easy if somebody's had a hysterectomy to replace their estrogen because they don't need the other piece of progesterone. So what her question was how difficult might this be, or how risky might it be? That's why she asked you about your uterus.
But that's the question she should have said to me, or statement she said, is you have this history in your family
of cancer,
of the possibility of cancer. That's my concern. So now you still have a uterus, and here's what, and then explain it.
Right.
The possibility goes up that much more, or it's this.
And it's not that much more.
Right.
Can you talk, Lisa, a little bit about all the different HRT options and how do they differ from the bioidentical hormones?
Yeah, I've got a great article on bioidenticals. That's what I'm on.
That could be a whole segment in and of itself. And let's just start with that term bioidentical, making it clear that bioidentical is neither here nor there when it comes to safety or effectiveness. And there are FDA commercial products that happen to be bioidentical, not that it matters for safety or effectiveness. And bioidentical sometimes is confused with another term that is compounded. Compounded means it's made in the back of a pharmacy according to somebody's recipe, and it's not FDA approved. It's not going to be consistent from batch to batch. Now, are some compounded formulations bioidentical? Yes. Are all bioidentical formulations compounded? No. So those terms can be confusing. Bioidentical means that it's chemically, structurally like what your body used to make.
And
So
is it synthetic material then, or is it?
well, synthetic means
natural.
made in a lab. So you can have bioidentical. I suppose it's synthetic, but also plant-based. So again, those are a lot of terms that are a little bit irrelevant when it comes to a choice of what to take. And I would rely on a physician to guide you on that, because a lot of the products that we have available, pills, patches, rings, sprays, etc., they're all going to do the trick, and they're all going to have a similar safety profile, a similar risk profile. And the problem for physicians is that we don't know what your pharmacy benefits are, and they are different from the next gals and the next gals and the next gal. So if I prescribe something and you get sticker shock at the pharmacy and you call my office, how could you? I don't know what your pharmacy benefits are. So keep in mind, this is a pearl. Your insurance price, or the price you have to pay on your insurance plan for a product, any product, may not be the lowest price available. You might do better by paying cash out of pocket.
I have found that.
Than what your insurance charges.
For the same product?
Absolutely. You
Really?
gotta ask your pharmacist about that, because sometimes they'll go, oh, well, the cash price is this, your insurance charges that.
Wow.
That's a pearl.
It's a
Everybody should know
racket.
about
Yep.
that. It is a racket.
It's and sometimes
It
the
is a
pharmacists
racket.
have a coupon
Oh, always.
that they can
GoodRx
apply if you're
or-
playing, if
Cash.
you're paying cash, and it turns out to be significantly cheaper than
Yes.
if you would have just processed it through your insurance.
Absolutely.
Okay, we've been talking a lot about HRT, and the corollary to that conversation is to test or not to test. So what is up with the whole testing situation?
And when you say test, we're testing
Blood
hormone
work?
levels.
Right, blood work.
Right.
Although you can also test hormone levels apparently through saliva and apparently through dry urine. And those are the three methods that I have read about.
I don't know about the validity of those testing methods. I will tell you that in my practice, blood tests to see if someone's menopausal would be individualized and largely based on age. So if I had someone who's 52 with classic symptoms, hasn't had a period in months, I don't need a blood test to tell me what's going on, and I don't need it to go ahead and treat her. I don't check hormone levels on treatment. We typically titrate dosage to symptom relief. So if symptoms are inadequately relieved, then we
Up
go
the
up
dose
on
a
the
little.
dose
Got ya.
until they are relieved, and that's the point at which we found our dosage.
Can you correlate dosage to a hormone test?
No, see, that's part of the problem with testing, is that there's not good correlation. I can have someone whose FSH is off the charts and she has minimal symptoms. I can have someone else whose FSH is barely outside the range for being in menopause and she is absolutely miserable.
Can you explain what FSH is?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, follicle stimulating hormone. And that is, I call it, in my practice, I would reference that as the menopause indicator. And there's ranges of normal and elevated and so forth. But it can vary from one day to the next. That's the other problem with testing, is that if you check it, that's a snapshot in time. And it might be completely different the next day or the next week or the next month. And so testing has a place, but in many cases it's really not helpful.
I am happy to be tested. I'm a person who likes a roadmap. I want to see how things are going. I want to measure them against my experience. I'm a data-driven kind of person, so I don't mind it, but that can get really financially debilitating.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really strong kind of apple on the side of, like, go with your gut. If the symptoms are take the smallest dose that you can to make your symptoms go away and like just go with that. So I get it. But I also, there are a lot of doctors who want a roadmap, even with the caveat that it's only a snapshot of what your month has been like. I think it's also important to say, because we've had such a great informative discussion on HRT, that there are still a lot of women who don't choose to go that route, and there are and that's totally fine. I think that's a really important part of us starting to talk about menopause out in the real world, is that no judgments. We have to be a judgment-free zone, right?
Yeah.
Women have to
It's
have
not
these,
for everyone.
right?
Either for
And
medical reasons or just personal decision.
so is that what you're finding? I want to know a whole lot about Genève. I've gotten so much personal help from it that I want to know what other kinds of experiences you're offering to women.
Sure. So I mentioned that Genève it's online. It's at genève.com. We have telemedicine services so women can book appointments with practitioners like Dr. Lisa Savage. You can also access free education. It's an education platform to try and normalize this. We also have a community platform for the whole, support network that women are really asking for. We also have a line of feminine care products. Right now, around vaginal health, we're starting to address more supplements. You'll see more over-the-counter products offered that really complement the really evidence-based medicine approach we take with our telemedicine services. And one thing we're soon to launch, and this is based on feedback from women, is so we've had already a menopause assessment on the site, and it's about an 8-minute questionnaire. And in many ways, our whole goal with it was to normalize what's happening with women. But over time, we wanted to give you a roadmap of where you are kind of in the process, and then what's ahead. There's no what to expect when you're expecting for menopause.
I did.
It lets you be the guide of what you want to do, but it shows you all the options, and it's factual. We are working with functional medicine naturopathic doctors that complement, again, our evidence-based approach. So that's Genève. Our whole goal is to improve access to menopause care, to normalize it for women, and to make it affordable. An appointment with a telemedicine practitioner is $35. Like, we want to improve access to quality care.
I think some of our doctors need to pay close attention to the symptoms that are happening, because I feel like they don't even know all the symptoms. And I've asked other people, are you having hair thinning? Is that part of it? Is that just a genetic thing? They're like, that's just you. And I don't think it. How come my hair stopped growing on my body? No one's explained that, not once yet. And I'm like, I had not a lot anyway, but I don't understand. Like, I want to know all these different things. Can I grow it back? Am I doomed? Do I need to just shave it off and be bald for the rest of my life? I mean, what do I need to do? Do I just need to wear wigs all the time? Like, what do I need to do? Because I will adapt, but I just need to understand, is there hope? Or is there no hope? Right. Or what am I dealing with? And they don't ever give me the correct answer, because even the OBGYN I have now is just kind of like,
well, so I don't know what the menopause specific certification training is, for example, through the North American Menopause Society, but I know there's an activist in the UK, and I heard her because she and her dad were on a news show. I posted it on the HelloPause webpage, and she started the Latte Lounge, and she's now become an activist in getting general practitioners in the UK to have just a list of like classic symptoms that go beyond hot flashes, so that if you're sitting, if there is a middle-aged woman, a woman anywhere from her late 30s to her early 50s sitting in your office, and she's got any one of like this short list of symptoms, that tells you, oh, okay, potential for a perimenopause situation. Ding, 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 the bell goes off. And like, that's like, would be so helpful. I think that's what like a lot of our general practitioners could really benefit from. Like, just a little, like a cheat sheet that just says, oh, 39 to 50. Do you have la 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 or la la? Ooh, I think I know what to tell you.
Right. I mean,
you may or may not be in perimenopause.
I can't remember. It's a hard thing. But then also knowing what's the difference, because a lot of my friends are still going, I'm perimenopausal, or they think they are. And I'm like, no, girl. You're menopausal, because everyone keeps telling me menopause is you don't have a period anymore. What is the difference? Once you stop having an actual menstrual cycle, you're in menopause. That's it.
For a year.
For a
Yeah,
year.
you have
For
Yeah,
12
for a
consecutive
year,
months.
for a year, right. But people don't, they're like, oh, I kind of, and I'm like, you need to know. Like, you're still, it's the still hanging on. It's
Well,
that
I
hanging
don't
on.
know. I don't know.
I am hanging on. You're like, girl, you're not going to have a kid anytime soon. It's just,
But is
it's,
it,
you know.
is it because they want to continue to have children, or is it because it's associated with age?
I think it's age. I think it's youth. I think
Yeah.
it's I'm a Kardashian. I think it's I'm hiring that person. I can get this. I'm Janet
also-
Jackson. Girl, you're not. No, she has. Go trust me. She has a doctor in Beverly Hills who has a ton of money and all this knowledge, and is like, we will give you IVF, Janet,
Well, we'll
and
give you a donor
Right.
egg.
Yeah.
something. Yeah, a donor
Yes.
egg and a donor uterus if you need.
Yeah.
We her PR people, like, come on, they can fake the bump. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. When did you see her out? I mean, like, all these things, people are like, oh no, I can do it. We need to not shame. We need to not have that shame of that perimenopause. Yeah, you're perimenopausal. I shared with Brandi. I believe that I completely went into menopause, did not realize it at like 44 or 45, which people are like, oh, I was young. Because everyone kept saying to me up until I was like 48, girl, you can still have a baby. You might still have a baby. And I was like, I don't know.
Once you're 40,
Pretty sure.
Did you want a baby?
Yes, I wanted to have 5 children, but it never happens. The physicians not only need to talk about, here's an HRT to help you, it's also, let's deal with the psychology that's going on in your brain right now.
It's the morning
depression. Yes.
There's going to be no more babies,
You're
whether
not
you
gonna
wanted them
have
or
them.
not.
At 44?
Yeah.
Come on. My friends were still girl, we're pregnant. Like,
Yeah, I have a girlfriend right now who's pregnant at 44.
It's interesting. I wonder if this is cultural, because you've talked a little bit about cultural differences, because
it's because they're huge, let me tell you something.
I know we see, even in the data on our menopause assessment, Latina and African American women have much more severe symptoms compared to Caucasian and Asian women in many cases. But even culturally, some women are like, oh my gosh, I'm in menopause. It is so freeing, and so even,
That too.
you're in a circle that is much more focused on having children versus I want my freedom.
Right.
The takeaway is doctors, we need to spread the word. Doctors need more training, and the North American Menopause Society offers a certification so that if you are a breast cancer doctor, if you are a gynecologist who's been focused on the OB part of your practice for a long time, you can go and get information, and menopause.org will actually lists the over 1,000 doctors who have taken their certification. And so they can help you find one in your area if your doctor doesn't seem to have that specialty. But I think you do have to advocate for yourself right now.
To find someone who has the ability, the time, to be able to give you a longer appointment, you might have to doctor shop a little bit. And you might also, this is a little known secret, ask for the last appointment of the morning or the last appointment of the afternoon. If you don't want 15 people to be following you in those exam rooms.
Interesting.
Because then perhaps your doctor can sit for
Right,
a
they've got
minute
a
more,
few extra more
a
minutes.
few extra more if they're not
Yeah.
pressured to go on and see that next patient. And so that's just a little tip about medical appointments. The other one I have is if you want the physician to be as on time as possible, get the first appointment of the session, whether it's morning or afternoon.
Okay. So women still have to be our own advocates. We still have to talk to our doctors. We still have to do reading. We still have to come with questions. We have a lot of work to do in this process. We have to make decisions. Hormones or no hormones. Which supplements, how much of the supplements, who do I talk to, how do I find a doctor who can talk to me about all this? What lifestyle changes? Can I give up wine? Can I give up coffee? Do I need more protein in my diet? Am I vitamin D deficient? Am I vitamin B deficient? How do I get more of those things? Right. How do I sleep better without having a sleep hangover? Right. Okay, when really I have children to get off to college, and I have a household to run, and I have a career to manage, and wouldn't it be so much easier if I just had ED and could take Viagra or, So anyway, truth of the matter is, in the present, women still have to be very much on top of this in order to manage it in a way that makes our lives still feel worthwhile. But is there a future out there where that's easier, where we just get to pop the girl version of a Viagra and get on down the road?
For me, I get that this is a natural thing. This is nature. I do wonder if it's how to not minimize, but get it into a space where, okay, go there, answer, there you go. I love your company, what you're doing. I love that. Like, oh, if I'd known, boom, I'd type it in,
Like
contact.
one-stop shopping, education, resources,
Yes.
practitioners. It is really a
Yes.
nice
I think
command central.
informed women are empowered women. And our mission is to empower women to take control of their health. And I don't know that there's ever going to be a pill to pop or some simple remedy, but the more that we do talk about it, or at least women are informed about it, like we've got a whole nother half of life.
Yes.
So let's invest some time, use the right resources, and get empowered, because what happens during menopause, it's triggering the long-term things around cardiovascular, brain health, and bone
Yes.
health. It's worth it. It's
Yeah.
worth the time.
Yeah, we need better research, we need better access, we need better training for doctors, and we need better conversations. And that's what HelloPause is trying to do. And I am so grateful to all of you for coming to talk with me. That's my only skill set. I like to talk. So thank you all so much for the work you're doing for women in perimenopause, for sharing your story, and for helping us kind of make it easier for the women who are coming up behind us.
Yeah, raw for the women coming up behind.
Yeah, for sure.